Hey, what's up? It's Randy. Now, as a content producer, your job really depends on high quality video and audio. And I think I found the perfect pair of studio speakers for video creators and podcast producers. These are the Neumann KH80 studio speakers. The TLDR is that these are a 4-inch powered studio monitor with a combo jack input, software controller, and a really nice build. And they have built-in DSP, which is probably the reason I would call these the best speakers for content producers. So when I was looking for speakers for this space, there were 4 main things that I had on my shopping list, and maybe these are things that you resonate with as well. Number 1 on my shopping list were small drivers. I wanted something that would fit well on the desk, so like a 4 or 5-inch driver. This instantly ruled out anything like the Yamaha HS80s, which I've used in my studio for like 12 years. If you're producing mainly dialogue, you can definitely get away with 4-inch drivers. If you're also looking to produce music, you may want to consider adding the Neumann KH750 subwoofer. It's just going to give you a little more punch in that low end. But these small drivers are perfect for a desk setup. Number 2 on my list was a flat sonic response, or a acoustically transparent response. I wanted something that wasn't going to add too much character to the audio that I was listening to. A natural reproduction of the audio is really important to me because I want to make sure that dialogue translates really well through my mix. And with the calibration mic that you can bundle with this setup and the built-in DSP, it's definitely a very flat listening experience. Number 3, if you are a content producer that's listening to speakers all day long, you're going to want something that has low self-noise and not a lot of hiss. And I can happily say I took a bit of a gamble on these because I had no way to test them, but they are next to silent. When I plugged them in for the first time, there's nothing coming out of them. And it's great because you can listen to them for a long period of time without getting that fatigue on your ears after a day of editing. And number 4, I wanted some sexy speakers. And I think that these look great. They've got the Neumann badge on there. You can actually dim that badge in the software, which we're going to cover in just a bit. And overall, I think they have a nice sort of neutral look on the desk, no bright yellow. I think they look great. Now, of course, we're going to talk about the sound quality, but first I want to talk about the mounting solutions. Now, as you can see behind me, I've chose to desk mount my speakers. Neumann has a ton of options for you on their site. They have wall mounts, angle brackets, desk stands, boom arms. They have a whole ton of stuff, but they're all really expensive. And so I sought out to find something a little bit cheaper that would work better for my setup. Originally, I debated wall mounting my speakers, but there's 2 reasons why I didn't do that. Number 1 is because it's going to cause more sympathetic vibrations transmitting into other rooms. And this is a home office and function is very important to me. My son's room is just over there. There's another bedroom right over there. I just didn't want to have that sound transmitting through the walls and then going into other spaces. So putting them on a desk and adding a bit of acoustic foam is going to help decouple them and isolate that sound so it's not transmitting into other rooms quite as much. The second reason I didn't want to wall mount them is that this is a sit-stand desk. And so I want those speakers to work at any height and not get bumped off the wall by the sit-stand desk. So I found these desk stands online. These are the Kanto SP6 HD monitor stands. They are really solid with really heavy metal parts. They definitely won't budge if you bump your speakers or anything like that. Plus they have cable management through the back channel, and you can add some additional foam on the top here to help decouple even more. Now this foam that I used is just cheap foam from Amazon. I'll link the stuff that I use down in the description, but basically it's just one more step to decouple that so you don't have any resonance coming through your desk. Okay, now let's talk about the sound of these. It's really hard to show you how they sound through a YouTube video, but I will set up a stereo mic so you can kind of take a listen. Just be mindful it's not the best experiment, and I'm well aware that it's kind of dumb, but it feels weird not to show you an experiment of how they sound. It's really tough to make that translate through a YouTube video, but the first day that I set these up, my wife and I came and sat down and listened to some of our favorite music, and we're grinning from ear to ear. They just sound really nice and really balanced, very easy to listen to. I've been using these speakers for about 5 months now, and so I'll kind of go through the frequency spectrum and we can talk about how each frequency feels from a very subjective, how I feel about it kind of way. So let's start off by talking about the high end on these. I think the high end is really quite flattering. I think the main selling point for the high end on these speakers, for me at least, is that they don't leave me feeling fatigued at the end of the day. I can listen to 8 hours of dialogue, no problem, with music playing in the background, whatever, and I don't get that sort of ear fatigue at the end of the day, which is so important to me. Moving down to sort of the intelligibility range, like the 1 to 3K-ish, I feel like it sounds quite flattering. I'm typically editing a podcast with 2 hosts and sometimes up to about 2 guests, and I never really have challenges with differentiating who I'm listening to. Like the separation feels quite nice. Intelligibility feels there. Again, they feel quite natural to listen to. As we sort of move down into the, let's call it like the honky range, like the 500, 600 hertz range, I think this may be the one spot where these speakers tend to lack a little bit. And it's just a little bit of that sort of chesty warmth from the speaker. Maybe it's even a little bit lower than that, around 250. They may be just lacking a little bit of warmth overall. As we get down to sort of that kick and bass range, like let's call it 100 hertz to 200 hertz, things do have nice separation. Like you can clearly hear bass guitar versus kick drum, and there's quite a lot of articulation there. I will say it's just lacking a little bit of that subby feeling. You can definitely hear it, you just can't feel it, if that makes sense. And that's much the same as you go down to, let's say 60, even 40 hertz. It's just missing that real sort of guttural kick from what you'd have with a subwoofer or from a larger speaker. Now, I have a lot of experience using the Yamaha HS80s and as well as the Tascam VLA4s, which are really, really cheap and awful 4-inch drivers. Those to me are the honkiest, crappiest speakers. I don't even think they're on the same playing field. But if we're comparing them against the Yamaha HS80s, I think the Yamahas have definitely a nicer bottom end. Like just, you can really sort of get that separation in the low end really nicely. But the Yamaha HS80s have a lot of hiss, whereas these have none. So if I were to be picking a speaker that would be my daily driver for a long, long work day, especially with dialogue, these are a much better option in my opinion. Let's talk quickly about the build quality. Now, the whole body is very, very well built. It's made of a really thick plastic, similar to what you'd expect with like a Genelec speaker, and all of the dials feel very high quality. The combo jack feels nice and snug when you have an XLR plugged in. The network connection feels as you would expect with a network connection. The only thing I will say is that the power cable was a little bit difficult to get into the spot because your fingers can't really fit in there. So I actually had to get out pliers to get it to go in, and it never had like a tactile click or anything. Not a huge deal because once it's plugged in, I'm just going to leave it plugged in literally probably until I move from this house. So not really a huge deal, but just something to note. Overall, the build just feels exceptional and what you'd expect buying Neumann speakers. And one thing I will mention is that I typically have the camera that you're looking through right now sitting over there. And when I was setting it up, the lens sort of grazed the one speaker and it left a scratch on the side of the speaker. So just something to note, you don't want to rub your cameras against your speakers, I guess. Now on the back, you have settings for the local or network controls, acoustic control to compensate for different desk setups, and then your input gain and output level controls. Now let's chat about the DSP for these speakers. And this is, in my opinion, why these are the best speakers for content producers and what sets them apart from things like the Genelec speakers or the Atom Audio 4-inch drivers. So you can buy the speakers individually or in a bundle, but you can also buy them bundled with the Neumann MA1 calibration microphone. And the way this microphone works is you basically follow the app's instructions, you set the microphone up in the middle of the room, and then the software is going to shoot sound through your speaker system, pick it up with the microphone, and then determine how your room is affecting the sound that it sent out. Then it basically builds a calibration to compensate for any of the nuances in your space. Then it takes that profile that you've built and it loads it directly into the speakers. So the speakers literally have DSP in them that compensates for the shape of your room. And you can build profiles for any room that you're mixing. So if you go to the cottage for a week, you can bring these and build a profile for that room. It's really, really awesome. And this basically guarantees that you're getting the flattest listening response possible. Okay, how sweet are these results? I'm sorry for filming this on my phone, but I'm really excited by this and I want to show you these results. So you can see here, this dotted yellow line is showing what my room is actually doing to the sound. And look at these massive holes in the sound and peaks, like around 120, 140 hertz, just a massive peak there. And so this dark orange line, that's the intended line. That's what we want to see is completely flat. And you can see the bright yellow line, just how much closer it's getting that signal to that dark orange line. So the compensations are doing amazing things for the sound, making it almost completely flat. One thing to note is that to utilize this system, you actually have to have your speakers hooked up to a network. So I bought a cheap little network switch off Amazon. I'll link that one in the description as well. And then basically you plug your speakers in via Ethernet and then they can all communicate together. If your speakers are connected to your computer via the network, you can also do some cool things within the app, like dim the Neumann logo. You can turn it completely off. You can also adjust the output of the speakers. You can identify them, which one is which, and you can update the firmware all from the app. Now, in the end, it's really the DSP that I think makes these the most exceptional option for content producers, because if you're editing dialogue, it is so important that you're getting a flat acoustic signal and a flat response to listen to, so the changes that you make in your space are gonna translate well for your audience. So if you're primarily working with dialogue, you're getting the Neumann quality with these 4-inch drivers with really, really low self-noise and a really accurate signal reproduction. If, however, you are also looking to produce music, I don't know that these would be the best option for you. You can add that KH750 sub, but it's really expensive. And for that price, you might want to look at something that's just a bigger driver to begin with. So something like a 6 or 8-inch driver, something like that will probably give you better results for producing music. But for podcasting or for video editing, I think these are pretty unbeatable. If you have any questions about these speakers specifically, or you want more content about the day in the life of a podcast producer, let me know down in the comments. I hope you're having a great day, and we'll see you later.